So today we have a panel of distinguished guests. These are, I'll let them introduce themselves. So we have every semester when we do this class, we want to get some current people currently in the throes of their academic graduate experience. We've heard this semester from many people that have gone on to business school or to public administration or law school, but they always talked about what a great experience it was. Looking back 5, 10, 15 years later. So our guests today are in the middle of it. Are going to each take a few minutes to introduce themselves and talk about how they came to be where they are and how it's going. And then so if that goes about 20 minutes, maybe, then we'll open up, the next 20 to 25 minutes we'll have for questions from class. So without further ado, we'll just turn the time over to you. Why don't we start here and proceed down?
I hope it doesn't take 20 minutes to introduce ourselves. Really.
Well,
you never know.
Give us the real story.
Real story. Well, right now I'm in law school.
So your name? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. My name is Joshua James. I'm getting a JD MPA. I've completed 2 years of law school. I'm just doing my first year of the MPA program right now. And I guess I'm a masochist of some sort, doing such things. But I originally went to BYU, Idaho for my undergrad, studied public relations, and came here for this. That's really all I want to tell you about myself until you have questions. Unless, how in-depth do you want me to be?
Just talk about your decision to do what you did and why you ended up here, and some feelings on now that you've been in for a while. What did you have right? What did you have wrong? What do you wish you'd known?
Wow.
How would you have better prepare those things?
These are profound thoughts. It sounds like you won't have to have questions at the end of this. Is what it sounds like. But I graduated in public relations, and the semester I was going to graduate, I just decided there's no way I was going to do public relations. I don't know what happened, but something flipped, and I had decided that would be crazy, totally not for me. But I was convinced to just buckle down, finish my undergrad. And after that, I just went on an internship spree. I've had, I think, 7 or 8 internships at this point in my life. So I've just been exploring, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. It's really not that easy, it turns out, for some of us. But I decided I was going to go to law school. I interned with some cool people who had law degrees who weren't practicing law, doing pretty cool things. And so I figured that sounds like a pretty good gig. So I decided I was going to go to law school. It got a little convoluted. I started working. I was surrounded by people who told me I shouldn't go to law school, and I was pretty convinced they were right. So I kind of put it aside. And then one night, I was having a conversation with a friend. Her dad was an attorney, and we had a mortal combat of sorts about whether or not I should go to law school. And even though I think I won, we didn't have swords or anything. It was all words. But even though I think I won, as I was driving away, I just had this really, really strong spiritual impression that I need to go to law school. And I wasn't really happy about that, but I felt peaceful about it. And so prepared for the LSAT, which is a beast, and got into law school. And now the reason why I'm getting an MPA is because I don't want to be a lawyer, turns out. And I kind of had that idea in mind, as I already expressed. But I also wanted to get a management degree. It's just something I want under my belt. At this point, I want to get a PhD and teach organizational behavior, which is another 3 to 5 years of school. And I'll see when I squeeze that in. But that's my journey.
Well, my name's Amy West, and I'm from Provo, Utah. And I went to BYU here as my undergrad, and I did communications and an emphasis in broadcast journalism. And right after school, I went to work in the middle of Nebraska as a general assignment reporter. I did a lot of reports on cows and crops and all lots of fun stuff. I actually did a report about calving season and the fun stuff they do there, birthing, and that was a great video, by the way. So after doing that for a year and a half, I moved up and I was a morning anchor for 2 years out there at this little station. And then about 5 months before my contract was up for renewal, I thought I better think about what I'm going to do now. Do I want to stay in the middle of Nebraska where I drive an hour to go to church in the singles ward every day, or do I want to go somewhere else? And just what my goals were in journalism, trying to figure that out. And I always thought that in the back of my mind that I would go back and do some kind of higher education. I just think education is so important and always want to be progressing in some way. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think I took like one writing class just online, like to see if I could survive going back to school again. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that. And then my uncle, he's a lawyer, and he had always encouraged me to go to law school. And I was just thinking, I don't know, like maybe if nothing else, this can do nothing but help me to be a better reporter if I decide to go back into broadcast journalism. So I think it was December of 2012. I'm like, okay, I'll just take the LSAT and see what happens. And so I started studying the beginning of January, took it in February, and then I got into BYU in March, and I'm like, I guess I'm going to law school. This is going to be great. And so I quit my job in June and then started fall of 2013. And my first day at the law school, I was like, holy cow, these people think like I do, and just this overwhelming feeling that, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, even if I don't know exactly what I'm doing with the degree, I think it can do nothing but enhance my potential in whatever I decide to do. And so right now I'm a second year at the law school and still in a lot of ways trying to figure out what I'm doing with it, but I have a lot firmer grasp on that now, and that's me. Oh, you're on.
All right, I'm TC Corliss. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm doing the MPA here. And I guess my journey begins with my dad. He went to law school here many moons ago, and he conspicuously never encouraged me to go to law school. So I thought about law school for about 2 minutes, and then my dad told me not to do it, and I was like, okay, I guess I won't do that. For a while, I was thinking, that's kind of my backup. If I don't really know what I do, I'll go to law school. I feel like there's several people who do that. But in my undergraduate education here at BYU, I did American Studies, and I was able to go on some study abroads through that program because it's really flexible. And so I went to Jerusalem my sophomore year, and that was just an incredible experience. And then I went to London closer to the end. And when I was in London, I was talking to one of the professors who was out there with us, and he told me about the Foreign Service, which is working at embassies and being a U.S. diplomat. And that sounded really cool to me. And I was like, I could do that, just travel around the world and live different places and just do all these really cool things. And I talked to several people about it, and most of them had a graduate degree. And so I decided that I should probably look into that, though most of them would work for a couple of years doing public policy or something, then get their degree, and then join the Foreign Service. But as I was thinking about that, I realized I don't want to leave school and then have to come back. That just didn't sound appealing to me. I felt like I needed to get my degree done as soon as possible while I'm kind of in the school mindset, and then go out and work and then get maybe to where I really want to be. And so I just started looking around at different programs, and I actually learned that a lot of people I knew growing up had MPAs, and learned that it's a great degree for anything you want to do in the government or nonprofit. And so going to join the Foreign Service, it worked perfectly, and if that didn't end up working out, I could do anything else in government, as it's a management degree for that setting. And so I applied several different places. I took the GRE and got in here to BYU. And so it's been a really good experience for me. I was expecting it to be more academically rigorous, like tons of reading and lots of writing and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, the program focuses a lot on teamwork. And I say unfortunately because teamwork drives me crazy. And I'm sure a lot of you probably have that same opinion. I'd much rather be left to my own devices to figure things out. But that's one of the great things about our program, though, is that it forces you to work in teams, which is so much like the real world. Organizational behavior that Josh was mentioning that he wants to get into, it's it's called a soft science, I guess. You're not quite. It's kind of touchy-feely sometimes with the team, but it also teaches you really important things that'll help you in the workplace. So that's one of the things I really enjoy about the program, and that I think will prepare me more than any other program I could have taken for the real world. I knew how to work hard for my undergraduate education. It's, working with teams to get people who may not all be at the same intellectual level to be able to perform at a higher level together. So that's my story.
Okay. My name is Will Matheson. I'm a first-year MBA student at the Marriott School. I'm studying. They don't really have majors in the MBA program, but you can choose an emphasis, and my emphasis is supply chain. My undergrad was done here at BYU in political science. And I remember picking political science because ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with elections, and I really like the kind of the competitive aspect of it. I don't like the contention of it though, which is kind of weird. But it's also why I'm not in politics today. When I got home from my mission, my dad said, "Don't spend a lot of time deciding on your major." And so I'd already had a decent start with political science, and it was something that interested me. So I picked it, and I'm really glad I did, even though I always get flack for it. I'm really glad I did, because it was something that I was passionate about. I still am. And at BYU specifically, they give you the skills that you need. It's not an overly soft major, so to speak. The statistics courses that I had, poli-sci, was it 200? Or, no, what's the first? Yeah, 200 and 328. Is that still the same one? Yeah, those ones, I didn't understand anything at all. I just went through them, and I was just like, and then at the end I got a B-, and I was like, okay, all right, I'll take it. And I think poli-sci 200 I did better. I think I got an A-. But anyway, I didn't understand anything that was going on. But when I finished and graduated, I didn't want to. I saw basically the other students, political science students, and I saw them. They all did the Washington seminar, and I stayed in Utah to do my kind of work because it was paid here. But the problem is, I'm a Democrat, and so there's not. That was the only paid job that they ever had back in 2010, and so I saw all of my co-students, my friends. They went to DC. They got jobs. After a few years, they started getting a master's in political management from the Georgetown, or what's the one in DC? I don't know. And that's great. I just didn't want to live in DC. I don't like the contention of it all. I'm more of a consensus guy. I like balance, and that's why I'm a Democrat in Utah, because I like balance. I was actually I got involved a lot in local politics here. It's really easy to do that, by the way. Even it doesn't matter what party you're in. Local politics is extremely porous, and it doesn't take that much effort, because basically they're always looking for bodies with pulses to do stuff, and so it's really easy to get some experience, just to interact with other people and learn what you want to do. And so that really helped me. I became for a year and a half, I was executive director of the Utah County Democratic Party while I was still in school, and then I became the chair of the Utah County Democratic Party for a year. Like I said, it's really porous. Nobody's really fighting for this job. And I did that, and it was just experience. The being a chair wasn't paid or anything like that, but one of the things that I started noticing was that there was this trend that involved data. And the Democratic Party they know a lot of creepy things about everybody because of, they basically, I don't know if any of you are aware of, the the buzzwords of like big data and data science and stuff like that. But it was really fascinating to me that I could go and like find out what was the likelihood that Thomas S. Monson, what likelihood he owned a cat was. You know, I mean, like they have this data, and I just thought it was really fascinating, and it was a trend that I thought was going to grow a lot. And so any chance I could, I started learning more about data and analysis, and it really helped those, you know, poli-sci 200 and 328 because I had the statistic background. I got a job also when I was at BYU working part-time. I got a job at a data scraping company. And so I kind of just followed this trend of data. It's kind of like a passion. And so as I was working at this company full-time, it's called Mozenda, it was really an unhealthy work environment for me. I didn't like the way the CEO ran the things, but I really liked my job, what I did. And from a long time ago, I always wanted to get my a master's degree, and it was also, I was going to do law school. Sorry. But everyone said don't do it because you won't get a job. And I'm married, I have kids. Getting a job is really important, so I think I made the right decision. Sorry. So in order to get in the MBA program, you have to have a few years of experience. So I was getting my years of experience. I wasn't planning on the MBA, but I just decided one day, like, okay, I'm going to study the GMAT and take it. And I had taken the LSAT, and I didn't do very well on it. But when I took the GMAT, I did it, like, it was really a lot easier. Like, I don't know if a lot of people think that, but I felt like it was easier. And, you know, it could have just played to my unique strengths. So I got really excited. I applied to a couple of schools. BYU, I guess they wanted a different type of white male, so they they picked me. I think my Democrat roots got me in to the program. But the program is really great. It helps you get a job. And the reason why I brought up the data trend is like that's something that I'm fascinated with. I think it's a growing trend. My recommendation to anybody who doesn't know what they're going to do is just start building experience and doing things and start looking at trends that you think are on the rise or that are interesting to you. Follow them, get passionate about them, and then at some point you'll be more of an expert in that area than other people, and that's really where the value will be. And my hope is that after I get my MBA, I'll stand out apart from the rest of the supply chain focused students by having a little bit more experience with using data in business to make money. I mean, we're all about making money in business school. So like follow a trend, and then pick a graduate program that supports that. And you may not know where you're going, but just keep taking one step forward at a time.
So let's open up I don't know if this mic is on. Questions for our panelists? Yes.
Okay, Dad, how do you guys manage your money and stay financially stable through graduate school?
Are we you want to go down the line? Yeah. All right. Law school is not cheap, even at BYU. Although it is way, way cheaper here, no question. So the average law school debt per year is around $50,000 or something like that.
I think so.
Per year is about $50,000. BYU's like maybe that's a little extreme. $30,000 a year, but BYU's $10,000 a year. I think the average is 30. There we go. I feel pretty good about that. You might have to look it up yourself, obviously, but so it's a lot cheaper here. So. Because loans are cheaper, we can have completely unsubsidized federal loans, which helps. It's lower interest than what it would be if we had to take more. But I'm basically just living on student loans right now, and I'm living a little too comfortable considering that. But it's not the worst gig at this point. I mean, talk to me in a couple of years, but.
Yeah, I would just echo what he said. I mean, BYU really does make it a lot easier on the students in that way, especially the law school. And I mean, I went through all my undergraduate degree and was able to make it without any student loans. And so for the first time in my life, I have student loans, and it kind of does freak me out a bit that I'm like, holy cow, now I really have to get a job that pays fairly well. But I think there are a lot of programs set up to help you do it. And so honestly, right now I'm just focusing on getting through and making sure that I am marketable, and then kind of dealing with it then. Is that just coping with it? I'll cope with it. I mean, coping mechanisms right now to get me through it.
I don't mind revealing what I'm going to be in. I'm going to be in debt about $70,000 with 2 degrees. I feel like it might be a good deal. We'll find out. But law students at BYU without scholarships usually come out about $60,000 in the end, right? Yeah, about $60,000 is about what most law students will come out here at BYU.
And some people, I mean, if you get a gig at a really big law firm, you can make thousands of dollars during your summers, right? And so some people do a lot there to mitigate those costs. And it just depends what you want to do. You could be making money your second and third years in law school.
So the MPA is only 2 years, so I'm going to get out debt-free, able to get scholarships, and I was accepted some places back east like George Washington in DC, and I got a pretty good scholarship there as well, but with the cost of living, I would have had to have gone into a little bit of debt for that. But the MPA here at BYU is cheap, and it's only 2 years, so if you get a good scholarship and you work hard during the summers, you could actually get out without any debt.
So there's a lot of different options. Are you asking what I do with that, or what in general you can do? Both?
Yes.
Okay. So the MBA program is cool on a couple of levels because like you do have to go out there and work for a couple of years before you can really get in. And this, for most of the competitive MBA programs, not just BYU, you have to have some years of experience. And so you can, if you decide early that that's what you want to do, just start saving. And then there's a couple kids, guys in the program that are just living off of savings. So one guy started his own business, and so while he's in the program, he's just getting money from his business, and I thought that was pretty cool. You know, as a student, especially if you have a family, like don't be, this is just my opinion, but you really shouldn't be ashamed of taking advantage of the government programs. I know it's the Democrats, so, but like they especially like if you plan on like working the rest of your life, they'll get more than like they'll get more money back through taxes through the rest of your life than you'll ever take out. So you know, take advantage of like Medicaid, WIC, and if you're poor enough, food stamps. My wife, I don't do food stamps, but I do WIC. And my wife works a part-time job. It's really convenient for us. She doesn't make very much because she has to pay a sitter for her kids. The first year of the MBA program, you can't work. Like, you have to find a job. They'll kick you out if they find you working. So, but the second year you can, and most people are working the second year. And then the internship during the summer, they pay it. And anyway, so yeah, student loans are kind of the way to go if you don't have like rich family or you didn't save. But it's not that bad of a thing. Especially MBA students, the salaries are pretty good afterwards.
I would say that it's probably the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest, but one of the biggest mistakes the students make is they worry too much about debt when they're deciding where to go. And so most, top lawyers in the field will tell you just go to the best school that you can. The BYU is so much cheaper than other places that it kind of changes the calculus a little bit about what you'd want to do, but not that much. I mean, you go into $70,000 debt, and you get a job at a big firm, your signing bonus could be that, basically. So the trajectory of your career from going to kind of an elite place versus going someplace cheap is so much different. I used to say when I was at Chicago in graduate school, I knew a lot of law students, and I knew the worst law student at the University of Chicago. I mean, he got C's, he did his summer job, but he worked at the Gap, you know. he was, I am sure he was the worst law student at the university. But this is an elite school. He graduated and he got a really good job at a Chicago law firm and, you know, did really well. And so the worst law student at BYU or someplace less quality does not do that well, right?
Right.
So if you do well at BYU, they have great careers. And so that's, it just, the debt is kind of a relatively minor part of your life. And it's the same thing while you're here. I mean, good grief, you know, I mean, if you want, there's so many opportunities to take advantage of while you're a student, and earning a few $1,000s, and then missing out on a lot of those things because you have this part-time job that you're doing so you don't go into debt, is just a really short-sighted view of your career overall. Now, I'm not saying don't go home and tell your mother that Professor Wilson says go jump into debt and quit your job and all that kind of stuff, but just keep it in perspective. Next question.
Do you mind if I add a little bit?
Yeah.
To that? One of the best pieces of advice I ever got when it came to law school was either go to a top 14 school, they call it the T14, or go to BYU. Those are kind of the best options because for me, I don't want to be an attorney, but I want a law degree. And because of that, it only makes sense to go somewhere that's less expensive, where I don't have to die. Or the top 14, they generally have really generous student debt payment options. So if you work for the federal government, you get paid off there. If you work for a nonprofit or just make less than a certain level, these bigger schools have big enough endowments to help you pay down your debt. So consider that as well when you go into it.
Yeah. Yes?
I have a couple questions for Cindy, Amy, and Josh for those that are in law school. So the first is, I think both of you said you don't want to practice law. Is that right?
Amy, you don't? You decided?
Well, probably not at this point, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And Josh said that he saw multiple people that had JDs but didn't practice law. And what do you both want to do, or what did you see other people doing with that degree that didn't practice law?
You want to go first this time?
Well, I haven't totally ruled it out at this point, but for me, you know, I come from the background of journalism, right, where you're doing one thing, a different story every single day, and it's just so entertaining, and maybe it spoiled me a little bit, because when I think of being in an office all day long, and my whole goal in life is to be a partner at a law firm, like, I want to shoot myself. And so I'm thinking that that's not the best path for me. And so I've just been exploring other options at this point, and
Are you thinking of going back into journalism?
I like to keep that in my back pocket.
This just opens up some new options for you.
Right. And I mean, I could be a legal analyst, you know, in broadcast journalism, and I think that's kind of in my back pocket. I'm not sure if I want to go back to journalism either. But I'm also looking into other things, like maybe working in the legislature and be involved in creating laws, and maybe also being a lobbyist, because there are some public policy issues that are really important to me. I mean, freedom of the press and a lot of other First Amendment issues, and women advocacy issues as well. And I'm like, maybe it might be a good path for me to be a lobbyist. And so I'm exploring these options at this point.
Nice. Some of my favorite people that had law degrees and weren't lawyers, I mean, most of my favorite people with law degrees aren't lawyers at this point. That's not actually true. That was just really mean to say. But one of them is doing public affairs for the church in Manhattan. I interned for him. His name's Ahmed Corbett, super cool guy. Another guy, I met several that are just in government generally, not practicing in any way, shape, or form. I've met some people who have done business, started businesses after law school. Obviously not the most related, but yeah. I think there's people in every field that have law degrees, and people with law degrees are it's not proportional for how many are actually in it, actually obtain leadership positions. They just tend to rise, but that's not always the case. It's just kind of been my perception of what happens with people with law degrees. I want to get into higher education, and a lot of people sneak in with their law degree. Like a lot of programs, like communication programs, education programs, there's legal aspects that they need professors for, and professors will kind of inject themselves in and get full-time positions there. But I plan on getting a PhD and taking a different route.
Did you say an OB?
Yeah. That's right.
Yes.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
I mean, I could hear the answers well for, but I specifically want to hear about law school.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, we've heard all the stereotypes about law school. Did you ever think I hate this and I totally regret my decision, or are you really happy with it?
So I really am really happy with it. No doubt, like, first year is crazy, and people are crazy there. I mean, when I thought journalism was competitive, right? And then you get into law school and you have all these really type A personalities that are used to being the best at everything, and you put them all in the same room together, and it gets a little crazy. And people duke it out in a lot of ways. But even that being said, I mean, I absolutely love all my classes and I love being there. And for me, it is 100% totally worth it to me. I mean, everything that you're going to do is going to have, you know, some kind of aspect to it you don't really like, right? And that's just part of the game in law school, I guess. But I completely am 100%
Are you able
glad.
to find friends and colleagues there that are civil and
Absolutely. So the very first
nurturing?
the very first day in orientation, I actually met my best friend, and we do everything together. And I mean, it's amazing. I mean, some of the best people also are there. Some of the worst people, but some of the best people are there also. I have great friends there.
Will and TC, why don't you talk a little bit about the kind of the student environment? Is it a happy place?
So the MPA is a really happy place because everyone there is like, well, I don't care about money. I know I'm never going to make any money, but I'm going to make a difference in the world. So it's great. Everyone's really happy all the time. And we have significantly less work in our first year than JD students have. My roommate is in law school right now in his first year. And I don't know if he's really figured out that I just don't have as much to do as he does, but he thinks I'm super smart because I don't do homework as much as he does. So it's another plus for the MPAs. People think you're really intelligent. So, but yeah, it's a great environment because everyone's there to change the world. It's not as competitive because you're not fighting for the top job to make a bunch of money. I mean, like if any of us ever make $100,000, we'll be pretty stoked with ourselves. So it's a little bit different from our MBA comrades.
Comrades. Okay, I'll put, just to be funny, like, you're only there to, like, network, and, like, someday down the road, you're going to be working at a company, and I'm going to want to get into that company, and so we're all friendly to each other, so that we're building the network. It is very competitive, especially, like, when we play ping pong and Mario Kart. But it's not cutthroat because everyone comes with such a, like, in this way I'd say it's kind of, I don't know, I'm in a stereotype law school, but I feel like there's a extremely wide variety of backgrounds in the MBA program. I mean, there are people who were like accountants, there are people who were, you know, working for nonprofits, people who were teachers, people who were lawyers. It's just such a wide background that, like, there's only, like, in any given time, there may be like 2 people competing for the same job because the backgrounds are so different that like there's 150 students in the program, but given any random internship, really only about 4 are qualified to even pursue it, and the other 2 they're not interested in it. So because there's so many jobs out there with an MBA. I mean, having an MBA has its own list of, like, people don't like it, and it's, you know, you're so cocky and blah blah blah. But it's not like there's no funnel to a specific vocation. Like, the options are right there.
What about your coursework? So in the law school, they have this law school mandates curve that's like mandatory, right? How many people get each score, and what's the MBA program like in terms of grading?
So, they're really manic about this. Like, they'll say grades don't matter, but then they'll say grades really matter. The curve is really funny. There's A minus, B plus, B minus, and C plus. Like, and if you get 2 C's, you're kicked out of the program. And so, like, your GPA is awesome by the end. But it's more like BYU's MBA program is really different than other MBA programs, so don't think that like if you go to, I don't know, Michigan or whatever, you're gonna get the same experience. But like BYU has a really huge like missionary motive behind it all, and so they're not, you can't really fail and drop out. Like they're just trying to get you to a job in Tallahassee, Florida, where you're going to build the kingdom, or you're going to go to, you know, North Dakota or Nebraska and be the, you know, Relief Society president. I don't know where I was going.
And pay back your student debt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for MBA and MBA guy. What kind of courses do you take? Like, can you name off kind of your schedule the first year?
So our first year schedule, you have an economics course, which is basically Econ 110. So if you've taken that, it's pretty simple. A communications course, which is just like MCOM here. You have organizational behavior, and let's see, we have a lectures course where they have different alumni come in and lecture. Is that?
I feel like we're missing one. Oh, Facer doesn't count.
Oh, yeah, and an intro into public management, which we're pretty sure nothing's graded in that class, even though it's 3
You
credits.
do some kind of stats and quantitative
We
stuff.
will.
a little
Yeah,
bit, do you?
yeah. So our second year we do stats and accounting
That's next semester.
and ethics. So, and then the second year you can kind of choose what you want if you're going to do local or state or finance, nonprofit or federal.
There's lots of policy courses as well.
So, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's 4 tracks. Well, kind of a 5th track. So one is supply chain, which is what I'm in. That's like business operations. And then there's finance, marketing, OBHR, which is organizational behavior / human resources, and then entrepreneurship. And the first year, everybody basically takes the same classes. Who's the one that asked the question? Oh, okay. And then the second year, you specialize into what your emphasis is. And so we're taking this year, it's like business finance, accounting, an HR class, a leadership / ethics class, and an operations class.
Let me ask you, okay, so if you could go back in time, you all graduated kind of 5-6 years ago, approximately, right? So if you could go back to when you were sophomores and juniors, what would you do differently? To prepare for where you are now?
Who's gonna start?
Yeah, I always got something to say. So I asked around what, like the other MBA students, what they would tell you guys. And what somebody said that she decided a lot later to do the program, and so she's a little bit older. She said that she would have taken a couple of the tests as soon as she got out of school. So like LSAT, GRE, and GMAT or something, because those tests last for 5 years, and like she felt that she would have been better. She would have had to study less, fresh out of college. She could have done better. I don't know if I would have done that, but one of the things that I would have decided to do is, I don't know, just kind of like reassure myself that like there's never one thing that is going to determine the rest of your life. Like you really need to own your career path and like discover it as you go along, and you'll never know. Like 5 years ago when I was at school, I would have never thought that I'd still be here or that I'd be in the MBA program. And so I would have told myself, like, just go forward and trust that things will work out for your good.
I know it's easier said than done, but just figure out what you want to do. Once you know what you want to do, like your undergraduate, like what your major is doesn't matter. All that matters is that people know what you want to do. So figure out what you want to do and let people know. Let your advisor, let your teachers, let your dean, your assistant deans, whatever. And you'll be surprised by how people can help you get there and how they can say, oh, well, I know a former student who did that too. Let me put you in contact, and they can give you some good advice or whatever. And so if you just know what you want to do, you can just take whatever it is that you have around you and kind of manipulate that to help you to get to where you want to go. But it's not always easy to know exactly what you want to do at this point.
I think that's very good advice. I thought I knew what I wanted to do when I was at that point in my undergrad. And I think like, for me, the advice I would give was just like, do things to keep your options open. For me, I actually got my job before I technically graduated, and so my last semester I was doing things in Nebraska for school to finish up that degree. And I kind of just blew a lot of things off. I was like, whatever, I'm out of here, I have a job, see ya, my goal is met. And even though it still worked out, I was still able to get into law school, but I wish I would have still put in that effort and to make sure I didn't like slough off those classes and make sure that I had other options. I think it would have at least eased my mind a little bit as I was applying to come into law school.
That's cool. This is just practical advice if you want to go to grad school. Is the graduate exams are pivotal and can get you scholarships. That's just a legitimate truth that what these can do that. I have tons of friends who are paying nothing for all their graduate school, whether it's law school or MPA, just because they had really good scores on the GRE or the GMAT or the LSAT. So it's worth the investment. And it's these are the kind of tests where the longer time you can devote to it, kind of over time, the more adapted your mind will come just to the test. And so it's worth studying early and often. It's just worth it. And it's kind of nasty and late hour kind of work. But also besides that, really just love your professors. If you have any professors that you just love, just let them know and spend time with them and try to talk to them often, because these are your friends. I have mentors who are still with me to this day, who have helped me apply to whatever I've done throughout my life. And it's really important to find those mentors. And the more applicable what they do is to what you want to do, the better off you are. But it's not that crucial. Just find professors you connect with and try to stay in touch and try to really be friends with these people.
Anything else? Yeah.
So similar to the question I was asked before for you law students, what kind of classes do you take? What do you study in law school? So you get a general idea.
I mean, well, your very first year, everything's mapped out for you. You have no choice what you're going to study. They have you take torts, contracts, legal research and writing, and property your first semester. And then your second semester, you're taking constitutional law, criminal law, legislation, regulation, and what else? And then your brief writing class. But, I mean, they have it all mapped out. You don't even choose when you take these courses. I mean, you are given a section and you do it all together. And then when it comes to your second and third year, there are some required courses that you have to get in there sometime, but for the most part, we just choose all our own classes, and it's just based on your interests. Like this semester, I'm taking evidence and feminist legal thought, and I'm also taking what are my other classes? Civil trial practice, and there's another class in there that I'm forgetting for some reason. What is it? I swear I'm not failing it.
Do you go then with the same cohort of students from class to class? So
Your first
Just
year.
your first
your
year.
first year. So you only kind of get to know a fifth of the law school or of your class or something like that, right?
Yeah, it just depends on how social you are. But I mean,
But
you only have a
basically-
class. Well, some classes are mixed, so you'll have another cohort
So-
in there. So you might meet like a
So the
half
big
or a
jerk that you
quarter.
have in one class is going to be with you in every class.
I have to be straight. Like, I don't have any jerks in my class. And I'm really lucky. I think I have a really awesome class, and we all connect. There's never competitive. We hardly even know what each other's grades are, and that's just the way we like it. And we're all friends, and that's cool. But talking about, like, the subject matter of law school, chances are you're not going to like a lot of your classes, and that's just how law school is going to be, I assume, unless you're just crazy about the law. Because it's not really content. There's like nothing that I remember really from law school. It's about learning skills. So if you really want to just like learn the law, that's not necessarily what law school is about. It's more about learning how to use the law, and how to understand it. Yeah. Would you agree?
One,
I don't remember.
one thing is that a lot of lawyers want to go on and go into academics. That's if you're thinking that, well, you don't want to practice law, but I want to kind of teach at a law school. There's almost no chance that's going to happen, just because, the pathway towards that, if you look at just at the faculty at BYU or any other place, these are people that all went to Yale and Harvard and then went and clerked at, federal appeals courts, and then went to top law firms, and then maybe lucked into a job. And the reason is because there's thousands and thousands of people that would love to do that, right? And so the competition of getting that pathway into kind of a law school teaching profession is extremely competitive.
I think it's because a lot of people who go to law school don't want to be lawyers. And they're like, oh, there's one way out.
Yeah.
And also, it's kind of like the way it is with that is Yale. People who went to Yale are teaching at like North Dakota. That's just the nature of law professorship. So if you really want to be a professor, you're going to have to get into Yale, Harvard, or Stanford. Those are your only good chances if you want to teach law.
Okay, we're good. One quick one.
Just for you, Dr. Wilson, I guess, do you see professors in the political science department in the undergraduate institution that have studied law beforehand, or is that not very common?
There are people that, it depends a little bit on the area. So Professor Christensen, for instance, went to law school at Harvard, and there were some, let me think if we have any other. We've had a couple of others. Kirkham, yeah, he's a lawyer too. So people that go on and get JDs and then get a PhD sometimes. So it's pretty common to have kind of program envy when you're in a program and you're, gee, I wish I'd done this instead, when you're kind of in the midst of it. Like I always used to say that after I was done with my PhD, I wanted to get a medical degree. And my wife was like, you got to be kidding me. That's not happening. So we kind of nip that in the bud. But anyway, thank you, panelists. That was great.
Okay, welcome. We're glad to see you here. We'd like to begin with a prayer. Do I have a volunteer for an opening prayer? Great. Yeah, why don't you come up? Okay, so we're going to do this kind of informally. If you need a piece of pizza in the center of the discussion, feel free to go up and get it. We do ask you don't throw it, right, even if the presentation is awful. But besides that, we're going to be pretty informal here. I'm Professor Gubler, and Professor Priest and Professor Selway are here. Professor Brown, I was just going to say Adam. Professor Adam. Professor Brown is with us as well, and we're excited to hear from him. So, just to get a sense for who we have in the audience, I'm interested, if you're a political science major already, raise your hand. Okay. If you're an IR major, raise your hand. Okay. If you're some other type of major, raise your hand. Great. We welcome you here as well. So our goal tonight is to talk briefly about how to make the most of your major. And I'm going to say a few words, then we'll turn the time over to the different professors who are here. We've also invited a couple of students to speak and talk about what they've done to make the most of their major, and then we're going to have some question and answer. And the goal is to be out of here by 6 o'clock. So you get dinner and some conversation, right, all in an hour? It's pretty hard to beat. I want to begin today with a story. The story is about a younger me. Now you have to envision back in those days I had hair, right? And it was somewhat long and flowy. I could run my hands through it. I also had really big kind of 80s style glasses, but you don't have to envision that as I tell this story. So I was here at BYU, and I ended up choosing, I kind of bounced between majors. Ended up choosing to be a Near Eastern Studies major, but almost was a political science major. Took a number of political science classes, right? And by the time I reached my PhD, I had mended my ways and was a pure political science major. But as an undergrad, I thought that the university education was just about sitting in the classroom and getting good grades. To be honest, that's really all that crossed my mind, and so that's what I did. I went to classes. I sat in classes. I hardly ever said a word. And did very well on the tests. Was at the top of many of my classes. And graduated. At that point, I thought, well, what do I do now? Well, I'll apply to graduate school. And so I went to a number of professors who I'd done very well in their classes, right, and approached them and knocked on their door, right, and they opened it up, and their first question was, who are you? And I was like, oh, what do you mean, who am I? And asked them for letters of recommendation. A number of them said no, because they felt like they couldn't write a good recommendation. A few of them went back to their old class lists and looked and said, oh, you were in my class, weren't you, right? And you actually did okay, and then ended up writing me letters, but these were not super strong letters. And because of that, when I applied to graduate school the first time around, I didn't get in. And then I, had to go back, fortunately was able to get into a master's program, did a bunch of other things, and went on my way. I tell you this story as a bad example of the type of thing you should not be doing, okay? The way to make the most of your major, actually, is to be engaged in a number of different things along the way, with classes being part of the process, central part of the process, but not all of the process by any means. And so today I want to talk with you just briefly. I want to give you 4 reasons to get involved. Okay? We're going to, in what follows hereafter, we're going to give you lengthy lists and all sorts of examples and invitations to get involved in a number of different things. We have pages and pamphlets and many, many opportunities, many of which pay you well, fantastic opportunities. But before that, I want to give you 4 reasons to get involved. The first is that it gives you a chance to get to know your professors. Now, why would you want to get to know your professors? Because if you're going to get, yeah, I mean, not that we're very cool, right? But if you want a job, we often know people in the industries that we're interested. We all have specialties, right? We can pick up the phone and call someone and say, I have a student. I actually know this student, right? And help you get a job. If you're interested in going to graduate school, we write letters of recommendation, right? So if you're interested in participating in campaigns, we know people there as well. So first recommendation is the first reason for getting involved is to give you a chance to get to know your professors. Whether it's in a TA position, an RA position, a study abroad position, any one of these things we're going to list here, it gives you a chance to get to know your professors. My wife, we were married right before my senior year. She had to beg me to go talk to my professors. Beg me. And then kind of threaten me, actually. If you do not go talk to your, so don't do that. Come in and chat with us. You'll find that if you come in and say, hey, I'm anxious to be involved, what opportunities are there? You'll always get a positive response to that, right? Number two, second reason to get involved as an RA or a TA or an intern is because these jobs, these opportunities typically pay you as well, right? So you could flip burgers or, work at Roomby or different places like, anyone in here work at Roomby? I don't want to offend Roomby workers. Half of the youth in my ward actually work at Roomby. You could do that, right, if you've got to put yourself through school, but you could also take advantage of one of these opportunities. An internship will pay you more, right? Professor Brown's going to talk about the Utah legislative internship, which will pay you over $2,000 for a couple of months, all right? So it is extra money. Third reason we encourage you to get involved is because it gives you experience to make an informed decision about where you go next. So a number of my students have said, I don't know if I like political science. I might like business. I just don't know. And so what we've done is we've given them a chance to conduct original research with me or a number of other professors. And there's no better way to know if you like it than to do it. Some of them think, I don't like it. They get into research. They realize they love it. And they're now at graduate schools around the country. Others think they like it, they begin researching, and they realize they hate it, right? It's a terrible chore. And they're now at businesses around the country. Others don't know, do I want to work for Goldman Sachs or not? And so they go and they take an internship over the summer. Getting involved gives you information necessary to make the next steps, right? So you're not like me. You finish, you've attended classes, nothing more. You don't really know what you want to do with your life. And so, you start kind of applying randomly. You can do it that way. It worked out for me. A better way is to get information, as much of it as you can now, right? The fourth reason is that, it'll help you get a job and get into graduate school. So there's our introduction. With that, we're going to turn you over to a discussion of the opportunities that are available. And I think we'll begin with Professor Selway and then Professor Brown. They're going to present a couple of options, and then Professor Priest is going to present all of the rest.
So I'm going to talk about an opportunity to go do some research abroad in Thailand with me next summer. Now this program was started in Uganda. Professor Nielsen and Professor Findley started this about 3 years ago, and they took over some students with them, and they designed some experiments together, they ran them together, and all of the students that came back from this program were just really buzzed about it. And then I had some of these students in some of my classes later on, and they tended to be the best students that I had. This experience that they had with hands-on research and invested in their own project, so they helped Professor Nielsen with his project, but then they did their own project with him, really helped them understand what this whole endeavor was about. Not all of them have gone on to grad school, many of them have, and they've gone on to some of the best grad schools in the country. But those of them that haven't have gone on and done very well in whatever career that they've done. So this is really good hands-on experience. As Professor Gubler said, it's going to give you an opportunity to get to know professors so that they can write something a little bit more than, this student got an A in my class, wrote a paper about XYZ, and spoke a lot, right? I mean, you're really limited with what we can say if you've just taken one class with us. But if you've come with me on this program, I said, in addition to doing really well in this class with me, they came over with me to Thailand. They helped me organize this thing, and they, helped solve this problem that we had in the middle of it, some logistical problem, or they had this really good idea for this research design. I can start talking a lot more about your intellectual capabilities, about your administrative skills, and then it makes for a much stronger letter. Okay, now actually Professor Gubler, I was a 200 TA in political science. Professor Gubler was in one of my labs.
And me too. We were actually in the
So
same
was
lab,
Jessica.
it turns out. But neither of us remember Professor Gubler.
Yeah, I did not remember him. he came to grad school with me at the University of Michigan, where we were at for what, 4 years together? And I still do not remember that he was ever in my TA lab. Until we came back here, and Professor Christen said, you know what, I think he was in your lab at some point. And he looked it up, and lo and behold, so testament to what Professor Gubler was saying.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay, so I'm gonna sell you this program. Thailand is the most amazing place to go in the world. This is the White Temple in Chiang Rai, Thailand. You can see that it's just wonderfully ornate. We're gonna go here. And we're gonna go to scenery like this. The north of Thailand looks a lot like southern China, has these amazing forests, mountains. We can go zip lining in them. You can go trekking in them. You can go live in a house. This is actually one of the houses that the student interns live in. They live with a local family. They have 2 meals with the family, for breakfast and dinner, and they live in this traditional Thai house with these amazing traditional Thai gardens that you can go walk around in. Thailand just has this amazing history. This is, I don't even know what this is called in English, but it's a mixture, you can see it's a mixture of several animals together. And the north of Thailand just has this really unique history that's even different from Bangkok, which is the capital. So more ornate architecture and culture. In addition to that, in addition to just getting to see Thailand and experiencing it, you're going to have opportunities to work with locals, right? Understanding Thai customs, working with them, trying to organize, sampling, getting research spaces to work in, organizing focus groups and working with them, working with translators. You get lots of hands-on experience in the process. Okay. So what is the actual experience here? You're going to be helping me for 50% of the time with my own project. And what I'm going to be doing is implementing a survey experiment, which I'll explain in a second. And survey experiments are really useful skills to have. So you may not have taken a survey methodology class in your undergraduate training here, but there's a number of different professions where they will use these types of experiments to try and figure out if a program is working or which program of a couple of candidate programs are better or not. So cost-benefit analysis, program evaluation, marketing. There's lots of marketing jobs. I actually have a former student who is now working for a sports marketing firm. They go and collect a number of different statistics from different games. Volleyball games is his specialty. And then he analyzes it, and so he gets to use those skills. Okay, and they're increasingly parts of standard surveys and polling. So types of skills that you'll learn here is you'll be involved in the research design. So I have a general idea of what I want to do, but one of the first things that we do when we hit the ground in Thailand is we'll have a week's training on experiments. I'll expose you to some of the cool experiments that have been done in political science and some of the methodology. And then we'll start workshopping this main experiment. Your ideas will be really valuable as I design this. And as we go through this process, we're going to pull in individuals from the community, we're going to go interview officials, we're going to hold focus groups, and we're really going to try and hone down the questions and the format of the survey experiment. Some of you guys might go off and do some archival research for me. We're going to then run some pilot studies just to see if the experiment is working the way we think it should be working, and if not, we'll tweak it. You guys will be involved with that. We're going to have to do some sampling, some random sampling, so you'll find out how that works on the ground, right? Especially in a developing country where people live on dirt roads, right, and may not have a necessarily fixed address. And you'll be involved in all aspects of the logistics, right? So this might be going to the bank and exchanging money, which I had to do for an experiment in India. I went to this national bank had to wait for hours in line because I needed sacks of money, about 20 sacks of money. I gave them thousands of rupees, and I wanted coins, and had to line up for hours while they gave me these coins, and then we had to load them onto this little tuk-tuk thing and drive them back to the research site. So things like that can be fun, right? You get to learn how to deal with Indian bureaucrats, and you get to see behind the scenes where maybe a little bit of money may grease the wheels and make things go faster. Okay. And then, of course, you'll be there on the days that we actually execute it. And then when we come back, we'll be analyzing this. You'll learn how to clean up the data and start doing some analysis. So the whole process. In addition to that, the other 50% of the time, you get to design your own project, which we will work on together. Professor Nilsson and Professor Findlay have actually ended up publishing some of these projects that they did with students in the past. For those of them that didn't publish it with the professors, they've published it in the Sigma journal that we have here in the department. Or they've just written really good term papers, right? I had a couple write their term papers in my class for me, and they both got A's. It was just really well done and really well written. So you get to do that. So I have a couple of people who've already signed up for this, and even though you'll see that my project is very different, they have some really interesting projects of their own that have to do with the effectiveness of NGOs in Thailand that have to do with sex trafficking, and whether the national identity of the people working in the NGO is making a difference towards the acceptability of these policy suggestions that they have. So already I'm working with some students who are interested in this, and they're doing great on it. Okay, so the time period is approximately early May to early August. Now, there is an internship side of this program. If you want to do the internship side of this program, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I have a great facilitator out there in Thailand who can pretty much find you any internship that you want. So I had a student who wanted to do something with engineering. Another one who wanted to do something with, I can't remember the exact name, Habitat for Humanity. Okay. And so we found them, this facilitator got them these internships. So you pretty much, if you do the internship side, you can tell me what you want to do, and my facilitator can help you find that. But for those of you who come and do this mentored research aspect of it, the time frame will be approximately early May to early August. There's some flexibility there just because I've overestimated the amount of time that we'll probably spend on our projects, and so you may be able to go home early or go do some extra traveling in the region. Inter-regional flights within Southeast Asia are super cheap. I mean, we're talking about $100 to go to neighboring countries like Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia. So if we end up finishing early, you could always do some travel. We will be in the north of Thailand, in Chiang Mai. It's Thailand's second largest city. And Chiang Mai actually used to be part of a separate kingdom that was separate from the ancient Siamese kingdom. And this is actually leads me to the project that I'm interested in. So right now, Thailand has a king. The king is pretty loved in Thailand, but the problem is he's very old, and he's very sick, and pretty much within the next few years he's going to pass away. Observers of Thai politics have predicted everything from just continued political chaos and protests in the street to an actual civil war in Thailand once the king dies. What they're assuming when they do this is that the king himself is a figure that makes up the major part of Thai national identity. So I'm going to test this in an experiment. I want to find out what makes up Thai national identity. Are certain elements stronger than others, right? And can we kind of frame national identity in a way, maybe using language, elites, history or things like that, to figure out if we can get people to move their national identity, get them to be stronger one way or the other. So this is kind of the motivation for it. So I'm going to be doing some kind of framing experiment where I present national identity to them and get them to think about it in different ways, and then we'll have different tests of them, survey measures, and we'll also get them to play some really cool games where they get given some money and get to divvy it up between a couple of people. So And I can explain that in more detail. The research site is going to be at a university called North University. This guy in the middle is actually a member of the church, Brother Wiwat, and he's on the university presidency of this university. So he's offered very kindly to let us use the facilities out there. So we'll be working over there. We'll probably be working with some Thai students over there too. Thai students who probably will not have hardly any as much training as you guys will have in terms of research design methodology or even basic political science skills. So it'll be a good opportunity to have this kind of cultural exchange and share some of the knowledge you have with those students there too. Okay, so now I'm going to finish. We're going to do tons of excursions. We're going to go to the Golden Triangle, infamous for being a haven of drugs. Now has cleaned up quite a bit. Golden Triangle is actually where 3 countries meet, Thailand, Burma and Laos. But that's pretty awesome. There are always these just amazing little temples that you find with these seemingly random statues that I like. These are my own pictures, by the way, that I like to take pictures of. And they always really intrigue me. Like, I just found this statue of this Buddhist deity out in the middle of a field. It wasn't even near a temple. This is the famous northern Thai water dragon. And you can see, if you look carefully down here, that the body of that dragon lines these steps and goes all the way up, hundreds and hundreds of steps. It's really amazing. We're also probably going to go to Burma, right? We'll actually go into Burma and see what it's like there. I mean, Burma's going to have elections next year, and it's just this amazing country that's just opened up, and you'll get to see it. It's really kind of like the Wild West right now. You go there, and you never know what could happen to you, but that's part of the fun of going there. It's really amazing. And we'll probably also go down to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It's the world's largest religious edifice, situated in the world's largest spiritual complex. So Angkor Wat is itself just one temple, and there are hundreds of temples within that site as well. So that's pretty much it. That's all I have for today. I actually have to rush off now, so I can't answer questions. But I have a sign-up sheet if you're interested. I have a handout there as well, and I'd be really interested to have you come along. I already have some people come along who are Thai speakers. They're returned missionaries from Thailand, and so I'll put you in groups, right, where you have a Thai speaker when I assign you with a project. So you needn't worry about language capability for this actual opportunity. Right? So, and that's it. I'll hand over to Professor Brown now. Do you want the mic back on?
How to do it? I'm going to change your lives in 3 minutes. You ready? Well,
there you go.
Change it. So before you go with him this summer, first you're going to be with me this winter. Change it.
And then you get 2 good recommendations.
You get 2 good
right?
recommendations. I tell you, this is true what Professor Luber said about letter recommendation. When students who do this internship and about country for letter recommendation, it's so easy. Writing letters that say, you got to take this kid. You don't even know. You got to take this student. Let me tell you what you do. How many of you already know what I'm going to say? You've already heard me in like 328 or whatever. Okay, a couple of you. All right. I start with the usual question. Somebody guess for me. How many laws does the Utah legislature pass in a year? 1,000. Not quite. Good starting point. Most folks guess 100, which is also wrong. Give me another guess. He was high. 550. Yeah, 400, 500, that range. Okay, how many does Congress pass compared to that? More or less? Way less. Utah legislature passes anywhere from 2 to 4 times more laws than Congress did per year. Now, Congress meets year-round. Utah legislature, the Constitution of Utah says they get to meet for 7 weeks a year. So they're passing way more laws in Salt Lake City than in Washington, D.C. They're doing it in 7 weeks. Let's make this more fun. Utah, U.S. House of Representatives, you work there. How many personal staff do you have that work specifically for you as a representative? About a dozen. Average like 13, 14. How about a U.S. senator? How many personal staff in that senator's office? Mid-30s. If you're in the Utah legislature, you're passing 2 to 4 times as many laws. You're doing it in 7 weeks. One intern, and they need you badly. So this is by far the best work experience that I know of. They need you badly. It depends who you work for, but a lot of them are going to have you do the decision communications. You're going to reply to emails as them. Yeah. You might manage their social media. A lot of them don't know how to use it yet, so only a few of them actually have it. Those who have it, often they're in charge of it. You're like, yeah, I'll totally posting that's you. You're likely to be summarizing bills for them for their committee, so you know what's coming to their committee. You're the bill. You're likely to be writing their talking points for bills, so that when they present their own bill in committee, they've got an outline they can say about it. And you'll hear your words spoken in committee hearings. You're likely to help them with media relations. Now, a lot of them aren't going to meet the press, but bills blow up. And when they do, they need your help with that. What you're going to do, I can't ever predict, but they need you. Badly. That's why they pay you $2,400 for 7 weeks of work. You haven't got to move to Salt Lake. Most of the interns share carpool. The legislative staff usually are able to make transit passes available to those who want to come that are up there. It's not always. It comes each year as a gift from UTA. And usually we just stop even if we want to, but it's the way other than interns, because you get a lot. You aren't supposed to get a lot, but it can get a lot too. So you haven't got to move. Now I always have a few students each year who do move because they got family up in Salt Lake or down the road and they drive on their own. Most of them their carpooling and this kind of stuff. You get credit. Now, if you know you're going to graduate in April, you don't need credit. And you're like, I don't want to pay tuition. The lowest you can go is 5 credits. You got to pay at least 5 credits of tuition, but it will cover $2,400, right? If you know you need credit, we make available up to 14 on the semester. Now, it's only a 7-week internship. Where's 14 coming from? The first 2 are the prep course that I teach you in the first 3 weeks of the semester. It's intensive. 2 credits in 3 weeks because you're meeting every day for a few hours. And then it's the 7-week internship. For that experience, there's credit there. It varies on how much you want to show me that you learned afterward. And then after the internship, the final 5 weeks of the semester, we make available electives. You don't have to do it again. And this year, I'm teaching environmental politics electives, and this field trip should be awesome. And then Sven Wilson is doing the other electives, teaching political science, the year one, which is political, just public policy something. Questions? Yes?
Well, I wanted to do it. Wait, so you're allowed to do it if you run on a mission, right, yourself, right? Great question.
This reminds me of the one thing I did not say. Why am I recruiting so hard all of a sudden? The deadline was a week and a half ago. And for the first time, this is my 7th year as a faculty person doing stuff. It's the first time we've filled. And I think it's because the mission did. It didn't hit us last year, but it's been hitting a lot of internships and study abroad on campus, having 2 or 3 applicants, and it is this year. So we got about 10 slots to fill still. And this is not good because the legislature allocates to each university. We want you to fill this many slots for us. And we have picked up slots at the expense of the universities in the past, which we would fill. We want to fill our slots and keep them for future years. So I'll tell you what the official rule is. It's got to be a junior. Of all years, this is the year to ask for an exception. I can't promise you anything because I don't do applications. As a faculty member, I teach the prep course, I supervise. If you have application questions, you're going to need to go to the 9th floor of the SMIC at the Washington Seminar office. They handle applications. And you think you can make a case that you're only 2 credits shy of being junior or something like that, make a case for them. But this is the year of all years to ask because it's on a rolling deadline right now. There is no deadline. It is open until filled. So if you're interested, apply tomorrow. Does that answer your question around that way?
So we said I do it to the 9th floor of the circuit?
Yeah, the Washington Seminar office handles the application process. Other questions? It repeats what I said, has a link to the website, your application instructions.
We have some more up here.
This is a
too.
commission,
Shy
it's a
right
piece of
now.
paper. Yeah, she's got more piled up there. In fact, I couldn't find any because you
Yeah,
stole them all. I
sorry.
had to
I figured you'd know who took them, right?
Yeah, like, where'd they all go? So I went to try it real quick. Is this a question or a brochure? Okay, Steve. Any more? Okay. Good, guys. Good chance.
All right, you good? Thank you so much, you guys. So I have a couple of others that I want to announce. We've had a specific request to announce the London Study Abroad program. So Professor Kirkham is going to be running London Study Abroad. And what that means is that instead of it just being all about Shakespeare, there are going to be classes, political science classes. So it's summer, fall 2015, history, literature, human rights, and politics. So the classes that are going to be offered at London Study Abroad are going to be a little bit more relevant. There'll probably be some classes that will count toward the political science major. Have any of you been to the BYU London Center or done the London Study Abroad, right? So there are these, yeah, so it's in a fantastic location. I did this when I was a student, and the BYU London Center is like right next to a whole bunch of embassies. It's right near Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens. Princess Di's palace is like, I don't know, just basically next door. So it's a really great location. You go on field trips and do cool things and learn how to use the underground and stuff like that. So the priority deadline is December 4th, and the hard deadline is February 14th. So if you don't have anything to do on Valentine's Day, justify to right? Now you're not going to forget it though, right? Like, okay. So in addition to the mentored research program, the Utah State Legislature, study abroad, we have a whole bunch of other stuff. So many of you are probably familiar with Washington Seminar, which is internships in Washington, D.C., with the Barlow Center. And again, the 9th floor office sets up a whole bunch of different internships for you, whether you are a political science major or a civil engineering major, perhaps you're a political science major but your spouse is a math major, right? They can set up internships for both of you. They have married student housing in addition to single student housing at the Washington Seminar, Barlow Center. So Washington Seminar is a fantastic way. It's another, you get great work experience, great thing to put on your resume. If you're interested in the DC world, if you're interested in going and working in DC, you pretty much have to do Washington Seminar, right? It's going to be hard to show up as a graduated senior without any work experience, any internship experience, and try and find a job in DC, because everyone there are lots of people that are also trying to find jobs in DC, but they've already had an internship. And so they have connections and experience. So Washington Seminar is a great program. We've got a couple of other things up here. There's a new minor in civic engagement. This is a brand new minor, which is a hands-on. I actually don't know a ton about it. It's like literally brand new. But it looks like you're doing some working in a nonprofit organization, interning with a service organization, serving in a government office, leading a food drive. Cool things if you're interested in civic engagement. Okay, but wait, there's more, right? Okay, so here we have a totally incomplete list of awesome stuff you can do in the major. We have this handout either in yellow or lilac, and I've organized it in a couple of different ways. There's some links on here, but the first batch of opportunities listed are things that you can do to work with professors. So they're the ones that you're familiar with, right? Being a teaching assistant or a grader or something like that. Usually the way you do that, the way you get one of those jobs is by doing really well in somebody's class and then going in and talking with them and saying, hey, do you have any teaching assistant positions? Do you know anybody that has any teaching assistant positions? This is something that I think is important to emphasize. Even if you do what Professor Googler did and you do really well in the class, odds are you still are going to have to walk into the professor's office and ask and say, do you have any opportunities, right? So you need to overcome the anxiety or the concern that you're maybe, doing something inappropriate or whatever. It's always worth asking. So if you do well in the class, they may not have a teaching assistant position for you. They might not be teaching the same class. There's a good chance they're not teaching the same class. But they might say, well, hey, what else are you interested in doing? And it's a nice way to start a conversation. So being a teaching assistant, being a research assistant, these are great jobs. I think my teaching assistants get paid $10 an hour right now, starting, right? So it's, you're going to make more money than many other jobs. And the way that you get a research assistantship is, again, a little, it's going to require some initiative on your part. You work with a professor in class, or you write a good paper, or you know them from, some other thing that you've done. And then you start asking, hey, do you have any research positions available? Do you know anybody that has a research assistant position available? If you hear of anything, will you keep me in mind, right? So that's kind of the type of language that you can use to approach somebody about that. Mentored research, including abroad, that's like what you saw Professor Selway presenting, which looks like a fantastic opportunity. But not all mentored research is abroad. You can also work with professors if you just say, hey, I have this project I'm kind of interested in doing. Would you mind working with me? Or do you have anything you'd want to work? I just want some experience doing some mentored research. Looks like the link on this is actually from last year, Uganda's. So if you go to the Kennedy Center webpage, you'll be able to find the mentored research, or just pick up a Thailand brochure. Another great one are ORCA grants. How many of have you guys heard of ORCA grants? Okay, they've done a better job announcing them now, but what these are mentored research opportunities, and you get paid to do them. So you come up with a project, you do a course paper that you're really interested in, you want to keep working on it, and what you can do is then you go to the professor. The deadlines for ORCA grants are usually at the end of October. You go and you say, I'd really like to do an ORCA proposal for this. And I believe it's $1,500 these days. If you get one, it's $1,500. For a number of years, I was one of the college evaluators of these ORCA applications. And so, the professors have experience helping you write a proposal. Political science has done really well historically in getting their students funded. Not everyone gets the ORCA funding, but a lot of people do, so that's a great opportunity. So working with professors in those sort of direct ways, really great if you think you want to go to graduate school and you're going to need a good letter of recommendation, right? Because for all the reasons that Professor Kugler already talked about. Okay, so in addition to working with professors, there are other opportunities. Internships, study abroad, direct enrollment. We've already heard about Washington Seminar, Utah State Legislature. There's also, the Kennedy Center has an internship program in an EU internship program in Brussels, which is pretty cool as well. So if you want to do something more international. The Ballard Center for Social Entrepreneurship has some internships. We also have things like the Scottish Parliament internships, right? So if you want to go to Scotland and do a Scottish Parliament internship. Cambridge and I believe also Oxford have direct enrollment programs, so you can go and do one of your semesters in Cambridge or Oxford. There are a lot more, so the Kennedy Center, there's a website here for you to go to the Kennedy Center to learn more about that. Okay, so some other useful information, job or grad school preparation and networking. There's a link here to advice on getting letters of recommendation if you're nervous about who to ask or how to ask or what you need to have done in order to be able to ask. That's a good thing. Many of you are already familiar with Political Science 298, the speaker series on careers. How many of you, it's the class that meets right before this, right? So a handful of you. All right. This is an awesome class. What they do is they have alumni come in and talk about what they're doing in their career, how they got there, good advice for, and they give a wide variety. What are some of the speakers that you guys have had? You just had a grad school panel, right? Usually they have somebody from investment banking that comes and talks, somebody from the judiciary, other legal world, people that are in nonprofit organizations. So it's a nice variety. I highly, highly recommend taking that class. You also can just show up for the lectures. You don't have to be enrolled. So it's Thursdays at 4 in this room. So you can just show up if you're interested. Kennedy Center Speaker Series, the honors program. Minors and language skills. Thinking about getting a really practical minor, either in a language or in a computer science or statistics or something like that, can really open up a lot of opportunities. And of course, there are clubs and other activities listed on here. So this flyer took me maybe 20 minutes to put together, right? That's how easy it is to find these opportunities. There are way more that just didn't make it on here because they didn't come to the top of my head. But we want to let you know that there's just so many different things, and it doesn't really matter what you're interested in. There are opportunities on campus to be able to invest and do hands-on activities in that, and that's going to give you, for all the reasons that Professor Kugler talked about, it's going to give you a leg up in applications. It's going to help you figure out what you want to do, what you don't want to do, right? So you know, sometimes you try these things and then you realize, oh, I don't really like working on campaigns, right? Or I don't really like working in the legislature. Well, you know, now you've eliminated something. So you're a little closer than you were before, right? So, all right, so for the last 10 minutes of the evening, we have two students who have done, who've taken advantage of some of these opportunities. They're going to give sort of testimonials about some of the things that they've chosen to do and the impact that it's had on their college career. So we've got Christian Carter, right? Okay, sorry, it's been a few semesters. We've got Christian Carter, we've got Alejandra Jimenez, and Christian, why don't you go ahead and start, and then Alejandra, then you can close us out.
Thank you, Dr. Priest. So yeah, Christian Carter. I just wanted to kind of start off with my take on college education really quickly. That kind of coincides with everything the professors have said. I've had a very pragmatic approach to how I treat my undergraduate, in that it's an investment, right? You know, you're actually, I'm this is 100% that's why I have that mentality. But I need to get a return on this investment. I'm spending a lot of money, a lot of time that I could be using to work, right? Instead of doing this. So the only assets that I'm going to walk away from this experience are experiences that I have, people that I meet, and skills that I actually develop. And all these opportunities that they've been presenting are opportunities to really get those assets, really take advantage of what BYU education, and particularly in education IR, political science has to offer. So just that's a little plug for what they say, because it really is important. When I started political science, I did it mainly because I didn't like math, and I thought I liked government a lot. Wasn't necessarily the best reason to get into political science, but I really, really appreciated and enjoyed the opportunities that the program offers students, much more than many other programs that are at the university. And as I started, I was kind of in that mode of just doing classes, not really taking advantage of opportunities. But I was able to participate in the Washington seminar a couple years after I began. I interned in a judicial agency. It was fantastic. I did it because I thought I wanted to go to law school. And after networking with tons of law professors going to various law schools, which DC, they're all over the place. So I had lots of opportunities for that. I learned that I didn't really want to do law. That was not something that interested me, and the skills that I had weren't really ruined with back in my career. So it was a great learning experience for me, if nothing else, and it was just a fantastic semester. After that, I returned, and I want to actually make a plug for 4 classes, even though there's been a lot of kind of discussion of doing things beyond. I actually TA right now as a TA for political science 328, which if you're an IR political science major, it's the dreaded class. But I saw that class as an opportunity to learn a hard skill. And learning a hard skill as an undergrad is a very important thing. And I saw that as an opportunity that I could use to get other opportunities, whether becoming a TA or getting research positions, which I've held a research position for the past couple of years because of those skills I learned. And then also knowing that I'd be able to talk about something substantive with interviewers that I could actually do. So that's a little plug for those of you who are driving that opportunity. That's something that
Take 328 early, sooner rather than later.
Take it as early as you can.
As early as you can.
Yeah.
It opens up a lot of opportunities, and you get it over with too. So.
Yeah. So that opened up a lot of dialogue with professors and opportunities to really work with professors, which was really critical. Not for various reasons. I mean, being able to work with people who are a couple decades older than you, right? Or a decade older than you, is a great opportunity, because when you go out into the workplace, you're dealing with people that are at least a decade older. And that's taught me a lot to how to interact appropriately, to interview well in my career that's upcoming. So after participating in that, I've also another plug for the Utah Colleges Exit Poll, which we just concluded. That's a great project.
I don't think that's on the list. We should have.
Yeah. These are some of the opportunities you actually can take, not actually leaving campus, but that will give you really incredible experiences. So, for instance, we were on the front page of your website. A lot of state officials were talking about some of the predictions we were going to make for this past election. I myself, along with some other colleagues in the project, were able to construct all the instruments used to do the survey, so both paper surveys and then the actual Qualtrics infrastructure behind that to collect data and then to just, there's various facets to it. We did a lot of work, and it was really cool to see 2,100 people, or 21,000 people using that infrastructure that we developed. So it was a really great experience. And then, just like I said, my experience in political science has really taught me what I wanted to do. And a lot of these opportunities I had showed me, okay, this is something I like, this is something I don't like. Here's some of my skills and how they can work in this situation, here's some where they don't. I actually worked for Dr. Guler for a long time as a research assistant, and I really enjoy technical stuff. Like if there's like a job that needs to happen and it's really technical, I really enjoy it. Research, I don't personally love research, but I love the technical aspect of research. And because of that, that's something that I learned that I like business. And so knowing that about myself and these opportunities taught me that. And then I was able to secure an internship over the summer working for Goldman Sachs. And I'll be returning to work with them this January. So these opportunities are big teaching tools, and they're assets really. They are the things you'll carry away from college education. So that's just kind of, that's what my experience has been.
Thanks, Christian.
So yeah, my name's Alejandra. I'm actually only a junior, but my story's a little weird. I came to BYU as a freshman, fall of 2012. I was a business major. I had no plans to be a poli-sci major. I always actually kind of liked elections. Like election night was my favorite thing. Sounds really geeky, but it was. My mom would threaten me and say you can't watch election night coverage till you do your homework. And it sounds geeky, but I loved it. But I still was like, what can you do with a poli-sci degree? That's not a practical degree. So I wasn't a poli-sci major. I took 110 with Dr. Magleby just to cover the GE in fall 2012. I did well in this class. I got an A, but it was just, I think I talked to him maybe once at the end of the class, maybe, I don't know. But then end of the semester came and he sent an email, kind of like sometimes professors will send emails to students in general, like, well, saying you should consider the major. Well, somehow magically over Christmas break, if any of you know Dr. Magleby, you know he's really good at this, he magically convinced me over Christmas break via email to consider poli-sci and then to take 200. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but he convinced me to take 200. I changed my schedule all around to take 200. I'm so glad I did. I took it with Professor Nielsen, and I loved it from him. He takes it from a very experimental approach, and I love that, and that's what I love about political science as a major. And so then I took that, and then fall came, and I said, well, I'll take 328 next. That's an logical step. I was not a poli-sci major yet, so I actually didn't declare until halfway through 328 that I was a poli-sci major. So I went halfway through without actually being a poli-sci major. But then I did declare, so I've only been declared for like a year now. But there were a lot of things that got me in there. So I'm a junior. I'm also my job is I'm the administrative assistant for the Center for the Study of Elections and Democracy. We're a research center that's co-directed by Professors Karpwitz and Pope in the political science department, and then Professors Matheson, Goodliff, Brown. Let's see if I can do this. 3 more. Barber, that was 4 more. Patterson, Mons, maybe I already said it. Anyways, there's basically all the Americanists are involved with this. And so I'm the administrative assistant. I help things run the background, deal with budgets and events that we host. But I'm also an undergraduate research fellow with them. And so we have the opportunity to meet with the professors every other week. For an hour and a half a week, the professors present their research that we're all research assistants for one of these professors. And so they present their research that they're doing like in academia. And oftentimes one of us has helped on it, and then we all get the opportunity to work on it with them. So Professor Priest mentioned ORCA grants earlier. Each of us is part of the course, so we get a credit for doing this, are required to do an ORCA grant. And so we get to work with our professor on our own idea and do our own project. And so it's really cool because you get to see it from the start to the finish. You get to develop your own ideas. So the CSED lab, that's what it's called, so you're kind of paired with a professor and you really get to work and to know them really well. I've loved that experience because I now know my professors on a super, a really close level now. And I know them all probably all too well, but it's great. And so that's an opportunity that if you've already taken 328, then you can apply for the research lab. So you can talk to any one of those professors for more information on how to get involved with CSED. And so that's kind of my story and how I landed here. Fun fact, I actually ended up, so I got my job as administrative assistant just over a year ago when I was in the beginning of 328. And it's a long story how I ended up getting connected to that. Basically, it was my mom and the mom of the guy who had the job here. Turns out they were in the same state. They were talking at girls' camp. So you never know what happens at girls' camp. Great things can come up girls' camp. But that job helped me linked into all this. So my biggest advice overall is honestly take 328 early. It's a good idea to be declared as a major. I'm not suggesting taking it as like, oh, whether or not you like the major thing. Because really 328 isn't a whole lot of, it's not about political science, it's basically about statistics. But then political science, like, paintbrush over it. But it's very empirically heavy. But take it early because it opens so many doors. Professors literally ask for the list of who did well in 328 and want them to be their research assistants and want them to be involved with them. Take it early because professors, maybe you did well in 328 and it's just like an all semester, but as great of a student as maybe they really don't want to train you for only like 3 months and then you're gone because just the constant turnover. And so if they can have a research assistant for a year and a half, 2 years, they really love that because then you can develop on those projects, you can stay with those projects, and often professors will publish with undergraduate students if they've worked enough and long enough on these papers or with these projects with them. So honestly, it sounds weird, but as soon as you know, like, I think I want to do political science, take 328. It makes so much sense. The new major is kind of flipping it so that it is more encouraged to take it earlier, which is a great idea. And it really just teaches you so many skills about like just empirically all those statistical skills, but also just like problem solving, if nothing else, perseverance in the class. I loved the class, honestly. It still is one of my favorite classes I ever took. But you spend a good 15 to 20 hours on this class a week. Like, it's a second job, but I loved it. And it was great. So Christian can tell you it's a great class. He loves grading your papers every week. So taking 328 early is another one. And my other big thing is get involved with the professors. And it's as easy as honestly emailing a professor, going to talk to them at their office hours, and saying, I have interest and I think ours kind of match up a little bit, like I would love to work for you in some way, or blah, blah, blah. Get to know them. And the other thing is, like I said earlier, they have a lot of connections they can figure out, and even if they're not the best fit for you, there are other professors in the department, they know the other professors really well. So start with one, I'm not saying get to know all your professors right now, but start with one professor and slowly you'll get to know a lot more in their links. Like, so I like studying American politics. I don't know very many of the internationalists at all. And that's okay. But I know almost all of the Americanists very well. And so I've been able to get that. And my last piece of advice is get involved in events that happen in the political science department. PSA, it's both, because it's Phi Sigma, anyway. Political Affairs Society, they host a lot of events. We do like Welch's and Cheese every like other-ish month. And that's where we literally, a professor they invite students over to their home. It's like 15 students-ish. And they talk about something that's going on. And the cool thing about that is often students are deterred because they think, oh, Welch's and Cheese, like, oh, I'm in Professor, for example, Pope's class. I'm in his theory class. So he'll just talk about theory and I get that every day. But these professors actually get to talk about what they really like. And even though they teach the class, they may be good at teaching the class and they may know the material, but that may not be like their bread and butter, you know? They may have something that they really love. And so actually Professor Hyder hosted Welch's and Cheese last night, and he talked about Hong Kong, and so he loves Chinese politics and stuff like that. And he talked about Hong Kong, and he even said it afterwards. He was like, it was really cool because like I never get to talk about what's really happening like right now in this moment in my lectures. But I kind of talk about the overall, but right in the moment. So you get to know your professors with like 12 students right there. You're eating grape juice and cheese with them afterwards. There's a lot of fun, and the cheese was really good. And so, I mean, there's a lot of events that are hosted, panels that are hosted all the time. CSET actually has held 2 in the past 3 weeks. And just a lot of events of whenever we bring in people from across the country, we'll bring in people, speakers that they'll speak. It's a great opportunity, if nothing else, to learn more about their research and to meet them or things like that, just to get to know them. Even 2 weeks ago, something like that, CSET hosted a panel of just like poli-sci professors here at BYU about the 2014 elections and what they thought of it. And again, it's one of those things that they don't get to talk about that in the classroom so much, but that's what they really love, you know? And so they got to talk about it. And so it's really cool to even go to those panel events and see them, what they really love. And it's often those moments that connect and you're like, oh wow, I really love talking about the Utah legislature. Let me go talk to Professor Brown because he loves the Utah legislature as well. And so you get to know those cool things. Overall, honestly, the professors, they're really cool. I think you guys are cool.
That's why she was chosen.
The professors are great. They're wonderful. They want to help you. They're like, it's weird because I remember in like high school and stuff like that, you always like there was always it's just so weird. You're like the teachers are teachers and they were never a student before, but like all these professors are have been students, and a lot of them not so long ago. Like they were literally in our shoes less than 10 years ago, and so like they know what's up. They can help you connect to even grad schools, figure out what grad school you want to go to, or figure out what's good for you. So the professors have a lot of great resources. Get to know them just in the classroom or whatever. Like the classroom is a great place to start. Obviously, take classes from them, but don't just stop there. Visit office hours; they love that, and the professors are great resources. So yeah, political science major is a great one. If you're not sure, let's do it. It's great.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Just a little. Just a couple of closing thoughts. We really do want to encourage you to take Political Science 200 and 328 early. If you want to be working with professors, it's going to be hard to get a lot of these jobs if you have not yet taken 328. And so the sooner you can take it, the sooner we can hire you, right? That's number one. Number two, you know, and Alejandro kept saying this, like, we're us professors, like, we're normal people. The reason we're in this job is because we like working with students, right? So no matter how intimidating we may seem at the front of the classroom, doling out Fs everywhere, right? Not really. You know, we just want to come, we love it when you guys stop by and we can chat about what you're interested in doing, even if you don't know what you want to do yet. You know, just coming on in and saying, these are the 3 things that I kind of like, but I don't know how they fit together, right? And we'll say, oh, you know what? I have a friend that's doing a job that's actually a combination of all 3 of those things, right? And so we have connections, we have friends, and we can help you out. So, and I think the last thing that I just want to say is, you know, you don't have to do all of these things, right? If you figure out what you're interested in, you can just do that. You don't have to do everything, but you should do something. And I think a lot of times students are worried about the time that these things are going to take, right? So if I get involved with, you know, taking on the civic engagement major or something like that, that's just extra stuff in an already busy schedule. And we've said this before. Maybe it's perhaps controversial. Maybe you want to recant your when we said this before. But you know, sometimes it's okay not to get an A in a class, right? Because you're doing something that's going to help you get a job that you really want to do, right? And I'm not saying go out and be a slacker, right? But you know, you get to make choices now about how you want to invest your time. And for many students, you know, if you want to go to law school or you want to go to a PhD program, then getting good grades is really important. Right? But for a lot of students, if you want to be a campaign manager, right? Sitting and getting A's in all of your classes is not the most efficient way to get to that goal, right? And going out and working on campaigns or doing an internship with either at the state legislature or in Washington, D.C., that's actually a better way to spend your time given what you are interested in, where you're interested in getting to by the end of your degree. There are lots of opportunities. All these opportunities dry up. As soon as you graduate, they're gone, right? And so take advantage of the chance that you have as a student to be able to do these things, right? So yes, I am telling you, sometimes it's worth getting slightly worse grades, not crazy worse grades, right? But slightly worse grades in order to do something that's really going to get you where you need to be and have you meet the people that you need to meet and network and get the experience and the skill sets that you need. Am I saying anything that's too crazy here?
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Some of the things you have to pay for too are definitely worth it, even if it might seem kind of formidable, the price you have to pay for certain experiences. They're worth it.
Yeah. I mean, so people are coming from different financial situations, obviously. Some of these do pay, like the Utah State Legislature, you don't have to go anywhere, right? And you get paid, right? So if you're feeling strapped for cash, that's a great opportunity. But some of the rest of these, you know, spending the money and going to Thailand and working in Thailand for 4 months and doing hands-on concrete stuff, right, could be really, really worth it. It could be really, really worth it. So, so think about that. Don't be so concerned about the price. I mean, Mormons are really good at not getting into debt, or at least being told not to get into debt. But there are certain things, that it's worth spending some money on, right? And education is one of them, right? So obviously you don't want to go bonkers on that, but yeah, just worth spending some money on your education if it's going to get you a job that's going to bring you a return on that investment. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, thank you so much for coming. We've gone just a few minutes over,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
we are here to answer
Happy
questions.
to talk. We have a whole bunch of brochures up here.
All the stuff we've talked about, I'd suggest coming and picking up some of
Yeah.
these things. I think Christian and Alejandra are also happy to answer some questions as well.